G'day folks, this is Jamie from Blood, Sweat and Metal once again, and we have another awesome guest to join us. It's Steve from Kings Destroy. They're coming to Australia very, very shortly with Radio, Moscow and Holy Serpent. If you see, I've got a new hat. Yes, it's my Collingwood membership 2016 hat. I've been at the front of this house here. Checked the mail and my membership came in. This is part of the gift, so I just like to wear it. My mum says I don't like hats inside. Well, I'm not living with mum anymore. I haven't done so for many years, but I will be taking this off very shortly. I just thought I'd wear it just for this special interview as well. So all the hate mail, please come and get me. I can wear it. I've got thick skin. I mean, what's new? I've heard so many jokes about Collingwood and whatnot, but hey, just hope we do better than last year. That's all I can say. But you know, it's good to see I got my new Collingwood hat. I've been waiting for one for a while, so I got one now. So how you guys been over the last couple of days? As a matter of fact, it was just posted up the Soul Work interview with Braun Street. That was a fantastic interview as well. This one shall not be any different. This is a band that really are making a name for themselves. Kings Destroy have released a EP back in 2014, but they also did their last full-length album back in 2013. Please go and check it out. They're on Facebook. Check out what their bands are up to and whatnot. But we talk about how much influence they have from Black Sabbath. As a matter of fact, Steve went to Ozfest back in 1998 and saw the original reunion of Black Sabbath getting back together back in 98, plus seeing Pantera, Foo Fighters, amongst other things. But I also mentioned how ironic of that event was. Some of the bands that he saw in 1998 are either on a farewell tour or no longer exist. And I just asked him straight out, who does he think will continue on as these icon golden era bands like Black Sabbath, who on their farewell tour continue to inspire these new bands that are coming out? Now, he might have a different input than some people, but hey, we all have an opinion, and it's a good question to throw out there to these guests, because when these bands like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Metallica, so forth, hang up their guitars and call it a day, so to speak, who is going to be the next band that have a massive influence on other bands like the Beatles have, like Black Sabbath have, like Motorhead have? Are there going to be any bands in the last 10 years or 20 years that are going to inspire a new growth of bands rising up? And what Steve said, that some of the music that's out now will probably still be played in 30 years' time. It's going to be a continuous thing. And my personal opinion, I think the wheels are going to keep rotating as it goes through the motions and whatnot. But there is going to be a bit of a hole there once these bands start to retire and whatnot. And age is one of them, but also, you know, many bands that I know of, they're still doing it because they just love to tour. And there's going to be a time where they've got to pass the torch on to some of these other bands coming up. Who they may be, I shall not know. We just have to wait and see. But if you're a fan like I am, you will understand that there's going to be a time when these icon bands that are out at the moment won't be around, and who are we going to support otherwise? Therefore, I ask the fans to go and check your local support out, because it could be that band that might be the next best thing. Also, Steve and I went on a bit that 30 years ago, it was a bit more controlled with the radio, well, not radio, but music labels and that, record labels. But now it's an even playing field. You have the internet, you've got social media, you've got all these other channels to choose from, and everyone's on a bit more of a even playing field, and everyone can speak on their own terms as well, which is good in massive ways. Because back in 30 years ago, they couldn't do what they wanted to do. They were controlled. They were told what to do. If they didn't do it, what they were told to do, the contract would get torn up and so forth. But some bands took a risk. Some bands said, no, we're going to do this thing. We're not doing that thing. We're not changing our stripes, so to speak. And they continue on. And they got a bit of hate for it. And, you know, some of these bands survived that era of MTV back in the 80s as well. But with Kings Destroy, they don't want to be anybody else bar themselves. And that's what I like about it as well. They might have influence from other bands, but they're not trying to be that next band or Black Sabbath or the Melbournes or whoever they shall choose, because they want to be Kings Destroy, and that's who they are, and that's what they want to give to the audience. We also talk about the prospect of touring. You know, you can play for 5 people, you can play for 10 people, or you can play for 1,000 people. It doesn't matter. You should enjoy it for what it is, because if you can get out there and play, work hard, tour, and play your music live, you're doing better than Joe Blow that's sitting in their mum's garage doing nothing. So here we have Kings Destroy talking about the upcoming tour of Australia with Radio Moscow and Holy Serpent. Plus, we go into some good dramatic questions that I personally asked him, and he's answered them honestly and sincerely as well. Before we go, please, I will mention again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is right down here below this. And if you like, please leave us a comment. Give me some hate mail for me Collingwood love that I have. I've followed Collingwood since 1990. I was born in New South Wales, and New South Wales is a rugby league state. And my first AFL grand final, which was the first year of AFL, was in 1990. And I was at my grandmother's place, and who happened to play in the grand final, Collingwood and Essendon. And since that day, I've been a massive Collingwood supporter. So I got to see Collingwood grand final on TV, followed them since, and show my support. And yes, there's a Holden sponsor, so, you know, go to the Holdens, you know. But fingers crossed with Shell. But yeah, cricket is over for this year for me. They're going over to New Zealand to play. They're going to play 2020. Who cares? I mean, there's been so much things going on in the cricket world that I just, yeah, this year's been a bit boring summer for cricket. But the winter sports are coming back. So you've got rugby league on one side, you've got AFL on the other. Every weekend I'll be watching. So, and also be doing blood, sweat and metal. So if you want to give me some hate mail down below in the comment section, please also go to our Facebook page, Twitter, tune in, iTunes, Podomatic. There's going to be many, many things happening in the next weeks or so. So without further ado, let's welcome Kings Destroy to Blood, Sweat and Metal. Go and grab your tickets wherever they may be, and go and support Kings Destroy on the live scene right here in Australia. Catch you next time, folks, and we'll have some many great artists coming up very, very shortly. So stick around. I've got to do what I need to do, write out some reports for albums and whatnot. I'm behind in that, so stick with me, people who have been asking. I've got to do some reviews, but most importantly, if you've got a gig this weekend or this week, please go and check it out. Go to your live music scene, and you never know. You might be inspired by a band that you never seen before. You might discover some new material, and also to show your support, buy some T-shirts, buy some merch, buy the album, and most importantly, tell them that Jamie sent you. Catch ya. Well, folks, this is Jamie from Blood, Sweat and Metal. Everything is happening here on a sunny Wednesday afternoon here in Australia, but I have got a band that's coming to Australia very, very shortly with Radio Moscow. I'm speaking to King Destroy member Steve. G'day, Steve, and good evening from Australia.
How you doing? Glad to be on. Thank you.
Hey man, I've got to be thrilled to speaking to you because you got a gig coming up here in Australia and New Zealand with Radio Moscow. You're doing a couple of dates on the east coast of Australia, but you guys must be looking forward to this event coming up in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, listen, it's we've had about a foot of snow here already. It's freezing, and we can't wait to get on the road, and there's no better place to be in February than Australia, let's face it.
Yeah, it's your winter, it's our summer down here. You're going to love the weather, and you're going to get warm as well. But I know there's been a lot of things happening over your end of the world, including in the music. Basically, back in 2014, you released an EP that just been absolutely magnificent. But I want to go in a little bit more of that. King Destroy had many influence in their life from bands from the golden era, and one particular band is Black Sabbath. You're heavily influenced by Black Sabbath. I want to ask, when did you first start to hear Black Sabbath, and what made you such a huge fan of Black Sabbath?
That's a good question. So I started hearing Black Sabbath probably in the late 70s, to be honest with you. And they were just kind of part of the regular rock rotation on radio in the town that I grew up in. And then I kind of left it alone, because they played the stuff so much that, you could only hear so much of it. And then I happened to be living in London in 1998 when the original Black Sabbath lineup got back together, and they played the Ozfest in London in 1998 in this outdoor venue called the Milton Keynes Bowl. And I happened to be there for it. And it was a great day. Slayer played, Pantera, Foo Fighters, Soulfly. And then Black Sabbath came on just as nightfall started, and they absolutely ripped the place apart. They were so big sounding that every band that had played that day sounded like an amateur, basically. Mm. And that kind of just reset me back on the track.
Yeah. But with those bands that you saw back on the Ozfest in 98, are you surprised that some of these bands no longer exist or coming to the end of their career, like Black Sabbath are on their farewell tour? Are you surprised about that? And if so, who do you think will take over the reins of inspiring such a multitude of bands? Like, you guys only just started not long ago. I mean, you're not a new band, but you haven't had the existence of what Black Sabbath had, like 40 years or so. But when those bands disappear, who do you think will take over the reins to hold the mantelpiece to inspire new talent coming on board? Because there's going to be a massive hole to fill once these bands disappear. Pantera are no longer around, but you do have Vinnie Paul in Hell Yeah doing another project. And like I mentioned before, Black Sabbath are on their farewell tour. So who do you think will take over the reins to inspire such new talent coming on the board?
I mean, that's such a great question. You're basically asking me to look in the crystal ball and come up with who's playing today that's making music that's so important that in 40 years people are going to be talking about it. I mean, I have a couple bands that I think are in that world that are, you know what, honestly, the one band I'll say that I think is in that place that's live right now, and they're not that big, and it's a band called Yob, and I think they played Australia last year, maybe.
Yeah,
they've been around probably 15 years. I mean, those guys are making groundbreaking music, right? It defies genre. It's amazing. In 30 years, I think people are going to listen to their albums and just be overwhelmed with the sound that those guys created. But the world's different now, right? Like it's not controlled by a few labels like it was back when Black Sabbath was just coming up. Now the internet is different. Everybody can have their say. So I don't really know how bands get filtered through. I think it's a lot harder maybe now than it was 40 years ago. You know what I mean? Because everybody has equal say because of the internet. So it just clouds the universe of music. There's just so much of it out there. There's millions of bands who can cloud the internet who probably shouldn't be. Whereas back then, there was Capitol Records who was deciding, hey, this band is going to be the big metal band, and this band's going to be the big rock band, and that doesn't really happen anymore.
It's not, and you're right. The social media, like the internet, makes it a bit more easier for bands who not only to tour but to get their name out there a lot more on a wider spectrum. I mean, everyone can check on Facebook or Twitter to see what the band is up to. It's a bit harder back 30 years ago. You couldn't really tell what the band was doing because you didn't have many resources back then. And like you said, it was very, very controlled environment. But everyone's got a level playing field right now. But with Kings Destroy, you released an EP back in 2014. And for me personally, that's a killer of an album. It's a lot of influence, a lot of elements in that, and definitely old school Black Sabbath vibe in that as well. I want to ask, how do you see your genre of music going further ahead into the future?
Good question. Thank you. First of all, I appreciate it. For us, our background is in the hardcore scene, is in the New York hardcore scene, from the CBGBs of New York City, kind of post television, post Talking Heads. We were more in the era. We started playing more in the era of the Cro-Mags, not in Kings Destroy, but that's kind of like our roots are from this anti-establishment era. Like the first shows we saw were like Black Flag or stuff like that, the Circle Jerks. You know what I mean? And later on, like Fugazi or stuff like that. And when we started Kings Destroy, we were very influenced by bands like the Melvins, who we hold in high regard. And for us, this journey is, whereas a lot of bands get placed in genres, so there's the doom genre, there's the stoner genre, there's the psych genre, like Radio Moscow, very much in the psych genre, even though I think when you come and see Radio Moscow, you're going to see something that blows away any kind of genre. And for us, people will label us, and that's fine. There's no getting around it. That's how it is these days. But the reality is that we feel like we're kind of chopping our own path through the forest, and we actually don't feel like we're beholden to any genre, and we're doing our own thing, and we think it's pretty unique. Whereas you might be able to hear the influences, and that's fine, but the reality is like we don't really fit into the stoner scene or the doom scene or the hard rock scene, even though we have elements in them all. Like, we're just kind of forging our own path, and it may take longer to get wherever we're going, but that's okay. That's the journey we're on, and we're happy with it. And we've always been on that kind of journey.
One thing personally that I do when I discover bands or interview bands, I go left of field than the mainstream media or the radio, because some of the radio hosts that's on commercial radio, they'll ask questions, but they don't really know the band that well. And it's pre-generic questions all the time when they interview a band. Me on the flip side, I go deeper than that. I discover the band. I'll go down and find their roots, and I come onto a bit of a level of the band themselves. I find out, okay, this song must have transpired them to do this and that. But hey, they're not trying to be anybody but themselves. They love playing, they're enjoying what they do, and they're just making a killing. The thing about the latest EP, I transformed back to the 60s, 70s, like listen to like a Dick Clark special and just getting memorised by some of the music that played off this latest EP by King Destroy, sorry. It's like you've got Jim Morrison, Doors, Black Sabbath, all in one on a Dick Clark special. That's what I saw, and I was getting memorised. I was getting memorised by that because there was a lot of good bands on the Dick Clark special that got exposed to the wider audience on national TV. And mind you, it was black and white TV back in that day too, and went to colour. But that's what I got, and that's what I got from King's Destroy on the latest EP. But also, you've done a latest full-length album back in 2013. Is there any plans of doing another full-length album after this tour of Australia or later down in 2017?
So we put out 3 full albums in 4 years.
Yep.
We're one of those bands who we don't think we're good enough to not get in the practice, not get in the rehearsal space every single week. Like we're always in the rehearsal space. No matter if we've played 20 shows in the last month or if we played 1 show in the last 2 months. Every week we make a point of going in and practicing, and what comes from that is that we're always writing. And the reality is that we're already well on to our next album. We have an EP recorded that we don't even know if we're going to release. It's just prolific, like we're always working on new stuff. That's just who we are. We're very hard on ourselves in that we reject a lot of riffs and songs that we've written, and when we do that, we never look back. Like we don't, like a lot of bands, they might take a riff or a song they wrote 3 years ago and listen back to it and say, okay, we're gonna take that riff, we're gonna rework it. We don't rework anything. If the song didn't hit us at that moment and it goes on the back burner, it's gone forever. And I've got a mountain of songs and riffs that are just sitting there that we just don't use. So for us, songwriting is an incredibly important part of the band. And, we feel like we're supposed to put an album out every 18 months. We just feel like that's kind of the right thing to do. We're not pressuring ourselves to do it, but that's just kind of what happens because we're always in the rehearsal space working on it,
Yeah. I mean, you guys, like I said, you've just been doing a lot of touring, and that's probably one of the main core ingredients what bands need to do in today's society is go out and perform. Doesn't matter if you have 1 album or 3 songs, just go out and perform. Is that predominantly what it is now, that bands just got to go out to perform and probably make a dime here or a dime there? Because as we mentioned earlier in the interview, bands don't make big bucks anymore like they used to back in the 80s because you had corporate record labels. But if you go out and play at, say, the Rainbow for 10 people, at least you're doing something.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you know what? I don't think there's any shortcuts. I think, there are some bands that, for whatever reason, they get a leg up early on in their careers and they lever it, and that's awesome. Let's face it. Yeah, believe me, I wish I was in a band like that, but that's not how it's going to be for us, So for us, it's just head down, working hard, playing out, and it's literally fan by fan. It's literally fan by fan. It's not like we're gonna sit in a room and then put it on the internet and hype it up and hope that we're playing 1,000-cap venues in 6 months. We don't view it that way. We are literally writing music and we're just out playing, enjoying it, and we try to win. If we win over 1 person every night that we play, we consider that a win. If we win over 5 people, awesome. 10 people, 20 people, whatever it is, you know what I mean? 100 people, amazing. But you got to get out and play, right? That's what it's about.
Exactly right. And this is another thing that I really get up my skin. It's a lot of commercial radio don't necessarily play a lot of the material that the fans are asking for. I do understand it's a lot to do with executive decision making from the hierarchy of the radio shows and that. But if you make music, every fan should be able to hear that. And now you do have that type of resource like YouTube and Spotify and iTunes and that. But for those who don't have access to a computer, but only an access to a radio, they should be able to hear some of this new material as well. And I really get a bit annoyed where, like, say, for instance, Iron Maiden, all you hear on the radio from Iron Maiden is Run to the Hills or The Trooper. But what about all these underrated songs that they play, like The Klansman or Wicker Man or so forth, so forth? I think if you make music, everyone should be able to listen to it, no matter if it's crap or not. It should be allowed to be played on air. There's no boundaries for me. I'm a fan of music whatsoever. There should be no boundaries. If it's been recorded and I have the access from the record label that gives me permission, I play it. That's what I do on my show.
Yep. Yeah. No, I mean, I 100% agree. It seems that a lot of the mainstream or commercially sided radio is very much controlled by a very few people, and they're dictating what gets played and what's popular, and the rest of it is for people to kind of find out. The one thing that's different now that maybe definitely wasn't going on back then or back in the day is that at least now you've got blogs like, I'll give you an example, the obelisk.net. There's a guy he's been writing about heavy music for 7 years. He's got his own radio station that just plays music, 24 hours. He puts it up. He introduces people to bands, and there's all kinds of blogs out there like him. He's one of them. He's a big tastemaker. There's tons of them. I don't know if you have it in Australia, but there's a lot of them in the U.S. Heavy Planet, the Obelisk, Heavy Chronicles in France. There's a bunch of them. The Sludge Lord in England. And these guys are constantly out there looking, finding new music that's good and putting it up and making it available. And if you have your 5 blogs or 7 blogs that you pay attention to and trust, you'll find a lot of new music. I mean, that's how I find a lot of music these days.
Yeah, exactly right. And no limit on discovering new bands. There's many out there, and if we can all unite as one and just do it, all credit for that as well. But you guys have a tour coming up. It's starting over in Auckland on the 11th of February. You are touring with Radio Moscow and Holy Serpent. You're going through Auckland, Wellington. You're doing 2 shows at the Melbourne Cherry Bar. You're going to Brisbane. You're going to Sydney, Canberra, Wollongong, and some other places as well. Unfortunately, Adelaide and Perth don't get a date on this tour just yet. Maybe King's Destroy can come back to Adelaide and Perth, but time presuming, they have to cut it short. But we cannot wait for you guys to hit Australia and just really tear that stage up. I know, this is only a short tour, but hopefully we can get a full one later on.
But, that's the goal. The goal is to kind of dip our toes in, kind of get people behind us a little bit. And, for us, this is a major, major tour. Like, this is something we've been looking forward to and trying to make happen literally for 4 years, and just getting there now. And hopefully it's well received, and we're going to give it everything we've got, and we would love to come back and do the whole thing.
Yeah. But like I said, for those fans, please get to all those events and go to the venues. Live music here in Australia, we need the fans to come out and support it. Once now that a festival like Soundwave has departed and gone, and we won't go into details. I've done that on several occasions, my intake on that. But go and support live music. If you want to put money back into live music, we'll go and see King's Destroy and also Radio Moscow and Holy Serpent, because this show is going to open up a lot of eyes, I reckon. A lot of eyes and ears. And just have fun, guys. Just go out there and enjoy it and give your support to Steve and the band and all the crew that's going to be participating on the event. Steve, it's all the last time we've got for, but if you want one thing to say to the fans down in Australia, what would you like to say to them?
Let's grab a beer and just fucking rock out.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Anyway, man, I will see you guys in a couple of weeks' time, but take care. Have a safe journey. I know that you just recently booked the tickets for the flight to get down to Australia and New Zealand, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time here in Australia.
Can't thank you enough for the time. Really appreciate it, all right?
No worries, man. We'll take care, and I'll keep in contact with you very shortly.
All right, very good. Thanks a lot.
All right, cheers, man.